Hashem, today's Daf Yomi is Zevachim Daf Nun Hey, Zevachim 55. This is the Daf Yomi for Shabbos Kodesh, which we're recording on Friday. Says the Gemara on Zevachim Nun Hey, or start the top line, that the Shalmei Tzibor, the communal offerings, the two sheep that are brought on Shavuos, that they are considered kachi kachim, and they need to be slaughtered in the north. So the Gemara asked the question, how do we know that they're required to be brought in the north? The Gemara says, the Tani Rabba Bara of Hanan Kamei de Rabba, because it says in the pasuk Sisem Siirizim, it says that you shall bring the two goats as a sin offering, Echad or Chatas. One shall be for a Chatas, and then you're supposed to bring two sheep for a shlamim. And so it compares the chatas to the shlamim. Ma chatas b'tzafon, just like the chatas is in the north. Av shalmei tzibor b'tzafon. Also the shalmei tzibor, the communal offering, is in the north. So Amar Rava, it says, no, says Rava, you can't prove that, because how do we know? Remember, how do we know that the chatas itself is in the north? How do we know that the chatas itself is in the north? Didn't we learn that only from that olah? And didn't we establish this principle, davar alamed mehekish? Didn't we already establish that something that was learned out through a hekish, and didn't we say chozer alamed behekish? And didn't we say that something that was learned out through a hekish is not really supposed to? Is it able to turn around and also teach you a hekish? Didn't we say that that's not okay? So how are we able to learn from the chatas an ola to a chatas and then a chatas to a shlamim? It's a double hekish, and we shouldn't be able to do that. So the Gemara says, Ella, the Gemara says, Miditani Rav Mari Braid Rav Kahana. So what's the source that the Shalmei Tzibor is in the north? Because it says in the pasuk, it says in the pasuk that on the day of your festivals for your olos and your Shalmeichem. Ma ola kachi kadashim. Compare a hekish of ola to Shalmei Tzibor. Just like the ola is kachi kadashim, so too av zivchei Shalmei Tzibor kachi kadashim. Also, the Shalmei Tzibor are kachi kadashim. The Gemara says, and so too, ma'ola b'tzafon, av zivchei Shalmei Tzibor b'tzafon. So just like the ola is in the tzafon, the Shalmei Tzibor is also in the north. Well, if that's the case, says the Gemara, hakesha karmel amaya. So what was the first hakesh comparing the chatos to the Shalmei Tzibor? What was the purpose of it? It's to tell us ki chatos. It's like the chatas. Ma chatas eina nechalas ela zikrei kahuna. So the Shalmei Tzibor is like the chatas, just like the chatas is only eaten by the male kohanim. Av zivchei Shalmei Tzibor was zikrei kahuna. It's only going to be allowed to be eaten by the male kohanim. So the Gemara says, Amroy Abaye Yahachi, if that's the case, Gabay El Ayol Nazir, by the ram of the Nazarite. They'll say Vikribis Karbanola Hashem, that it says about this ram, it says you're supposed to bring a carbon to Hashem, a keves ben shnasel, a sheep, a year old, tamim, echad lo'olah, v'kivsa achas bashnatat mimalachatas, v'ayalachat tamim l'shlamim. So by the Nazir, the Nazir has to bring three karbonos: the olah, the chatos, and the shlamim. Hachinami nema, would we say also in this case the hikish hakas of a chatos? That what's the reason why the shlamim is compared to a chatos? That's to tell us ma chatos in the chalos el zichrei kahuna. Afayal Nazir nami eno nechol el zichrei kahuna. We would say that it's to teach us that the ram of the Nazarite can also only be in by the Zichrei Kahuna. Is that your chiddush, to tell us that the ram of the Nazarite can also only be in by the male kohanim? Is that what you want to say? So the Gemara says, Hachi Asher, is it the same? It's not the same. Hasam there in that case by the ram of the Nazarite, Kivin Nachsiv Akacha Koines Azroa B'Shelah Mina Ayol. It says in that pasuk that the Kohen should take the forearm that was cooked from the ram. So we see from here, Mikal the Kuei that it teaches us that the rest of the ram, the owner could eat. It's just the forearm that the Kohen eats it. So the Gemara says, you mean to say, you mean to say that the forearm of the ram of the Nazir is only eaten by the Kohanim. Is that really what you want to say? Is that really the upshot of your teaching? That this Zroa B'Shelah is only going to be eaten by the male Kohanim, but that's also not true because the next Mishnah states that everyone is allowed to eat it. So, meaning all the families of the Kohanim are allowed to eat it. So the Gemara says, Kosher. This is a problem, and so therefore the Gemara suggests an answer. Ibai Zema says the Gemara, if you want, we could suggest the following answer. Kodshe Ikri, Kodshe Kodshim will Ikri, that the ram of the Nazir is called Kodshi, it's called Zroa B'Shelah, but it's called Kodshim, but it's not called Kodshe Kodshim. So, hold on, let's look at this pasuk. Where is it called Kodshi? It's called Kodshi, but it's not called Kodshi Kodashim. It's not called, but it says by the Chatas it says Kodesh Kodashim Hu Hashem, but by the El Nazir it's called Kodesh Hu Kohen. It says it will be holy to the Kohen. It's just used Kodesh. It doesn't say Kodesh Kodashim. So therefore, we're going to say as a result of this, it's not limited just to the male Kohanim. And so therefore, we're going to say it is allowed to be eaten by the family. So if that's the case, so why was the ram of the Nazir compared to a chatas? Amar Rabba Shem Gilach al Echad Mishloshim. To teach us this halacha that if the Nazir shaved after one of these karbanos was brought, either the olah, the chatas, or the shamim, he's fulfilled his obligation, and he doesn't have to shave his hair again. So, meaning to say, once he's brought one of them, he can shave his hair. So now we're up to the next Mishnah. Says the Mishnah. Atoida v'ayel Nazir, the Thanksgiving offering and the ram of the Nazir, these are considered kachim kalim. These are considered the kachim kalim, the lighter holy. Shchitasim the kol makom mazar. They can be slaughtered anywhere in the courtyard. V'daman talon shtei matana shinar. But the blood requires 2 applications that are 4, as we discussed. V'nechol mechol ha'ir. They're eaten throughout the entire city of Jerusalem. V'kol adam. Anybody can eat them. Any Jew is capable of eating them, even non-Kohanim. B'chol machol. They can be prepared anyway. V'yom v'layla ad chatos. They can be in for a day and a night until midnight, and hamura mehem kayotzi behem, and the parts of them that are separated and give it to the Kohanim, i.e. the chazeh, the shok, the shok yamin, the breast and the right thigh. We're in the middle of nun hey amid aleph, the breast and the right thigh. They're separated, given to the Kohanim, and so this portions. They are going to be like them in all respects, meaning to say, like the same laws. The parts that are separated from them, the chaz and the shok, are given only to the Kohanim, and when the shame will name to their wives and to their children and to their servants. So Rashi says, Amur mem and toda, what's separated from the toda is the chaz of the shok. Like all other shlamim. And from the aisle of the Nazir is also separated the Zroa B'Shelah. Okay. And also the parts of the chalas, matzah, achas, and one of the 4 loaves of bread for each one. So there are 40 loaves of bread for the Thanksgiving offering, and these are 4 types, and 1 from each type. So the Gemara cites the Abraisa, but it says the kachim kalim can be eaten throughout Yerushalayim. So the Gemara says, what's the source for that? It says it says the breast of waving and the thigh of the truma, and the thigh of separation, you shall eat in the makom tahor. And Amar ben Nechemia, did they eat the other sacrifices that day in Tumah? Obviously they didn't, because you can't eat the sacrifices in Tumah. You have to eat them in tahara. El tahar miklal shu tamei. So it means to say that you have to eat it in a place of tahor. This implies that the place is tamei in some sense, meaning to say it's not completely tahor. It's only partially so. Meaning to say, chazeh tenufa and shoka truma, you should eat it in a place that is tahor. So, meaning to say, not in a holy place, but in a tahor place. So it's not as high a level of holiness. That's what Rashi says. But it says, tahor mikosh mideloksiv kodesh shmamina tahor b'miktas kamer. It's partially tahor, not completely. So what does this mean? It's a place, the camp that was free from the tumah of the mitzorah. The mitzorah was not allowed to enter into Yerushalayim. But it was still tamei from the tumah zav. The zav was allowed to be in Yerushalayim, which just couldn't be on the Harabayas. And what's called the Machan Elaviyah. So back to the text of the Gemara. Tar mitumas mitzorah. It's tahor from the tumah mitzorah, but tamei mitumah zav. But it would still be tamei. The zav would be allowed to be there in a state of tumah. This is the camp of the Israelites in the wilderness, which when they moved into the land of Canaan, it will be the city of Jerusalem. Torah says maybe it's the next level of Torah. Maybe it means it's tahor mitumah zav, but tamei mitumah meis. Maybe it's tahor from the tumah of the zav. Which is the city of Jerusalem. Maybe it's the Temple Mount, which is the Machan Elaviyah, and it's still telling for Tumah of a dead body. But it says the Machan Elaviyah. So Amar Bali, Amar Kra, no. Makom Kadosh. It says you shall eat it in the holy place. Usabim Makom Kadosh, which means to say you shall eat in the holy place. Means say it must be in a holy place. The mincha offering that was brought that day. So, hold on one second. This is about the 8th day inauguration, the 8th day of the Miluim. So the mincha offering that day is brought in a holy place, but the other items that they don't have to be in the Makom Kadosh. So therefore the Torah says they don't have to be in the Levi camp. And then it writes by the Shalom they've been Makom Tahor. Israel. So the Torah says it can be in the first case. It's saying that it could be in the Levi camp. That the mincha could be in the Levi camp. That the Todah breads could be in the Machan Elaviyah, and then it's about the Shlomim that they could be in the Machaneh Israel. Rava says a different source for this idea. Osavim Makom Kadosh v'acharis b'Makom Kadosh. The mincha should be in the holy place, but the other Todah breads don't have to be. Afkol Gamri. So it says the Todah could be even outside all three camps. Other cuts of Rahmana, but then the Torah comes back. Tochu b'Makom Tahor. Ayla Machaneh Israel brings it back to Machaneh Israel. Maybe the Torah can be all the way in Machaneh Elaviyah. The Gemara says no. We bring it one back in, but not two. Well, why do we kick it out of all three? We should kick it out of one, not out of both. So the Gemara says, also doesn't it say that you can eat that outside of all three camps? So the Gemara says we go back to Abayi's answer. Shlomim kachim kalam. So shlomim are considered kachim kalam. Shlitas and makol makom ba'azar. They can be slaughtered anywhere in the courtyard. V'daman, and also v'daman tolan shtei matana shein arba. The blood requires two applications that are four. V'ne'achon b'chol ha'ir chol adam b'chol machol. And they're eaten in every city, throughout the city of Jerusalem. And also by every person, even non-Kohanim, and any manner. Shlomim are in for 2 days and 1 night. Tamur man kayotz ben. The parts separated from them, i.e. the chaz and the shok, or have the same malach as them. But Parts given to the Kohen can be eaten by the Kohanim, their wives, their children, and their servants. And where it says Tanu Rabbanan, you say that the shalom can be slaughtered anywhere in the courtyard. What's the basis for this? It says V'shachato Pesach Ol Moed. He's slaughtered at the entrance to the tent. V'shachato Solofnei Ol Moed. And it's slaughtered before. But there's multiple psukim. One pasuk says V'shachtu Pesach Ol Moed. Another pasuk says V'shachtu Oso Ofnei Ol Moed. And then a third pasuk says Shachtu Oso Ofnei Ol Moed. So it says 3 times in front of the Ol Moed. So basically, it's to say that all the directions are okay for Kachim Kalam, meaning to say all sides of the courtyard. So meaning to say not just directly in front, but all the areas on an angle from the entrance to the Ol Moed. Gemara says, in Kavachomer Tzafan, we're going to say Kavachomer to the north. If Kachi Kadashim, which were not okay in all the Ruchos, are okay in the Tzafon, Kachi Kalim, Shilchshur B'chol HaRuchos, the Kachi Kalim, which are okay in all directions, and Odin Shilchshur B'Tzafon, for sure it should be okay in the Tzafon. Rabbi Eliezer says, the one of these psukim was said to teach us, not from Kal V'chomer, but to teach us explicitly that the tzafon is okay. Sheyacho, because I might have said Valodinu, the Kal V'chomer, Uma Kachim Kalim. Just like Kachim Kalim, Shehochshuru B'chol HaRuchos, Shehochshuru Mekomon Eitel Kachi Kachim, just like Kachi Kalim, which is okay in all the directions. Nevertheless, it wasn't okay to be Kachi Kachim. Those places were not okay for Kachi Kachim. Kachi Kachim shall Hochshuru al B'tzafon. Eno don shelo Hochshuru Mekomon Eitel Kachi Kalim. So the Kachi Kachim, which was only okay for the north, for sure it should be the case that case was not okay for Kachi Kalim. Kamomer Ol Moed, to teach us that the Kachi Kalim can be done anywhere in the north as well. So then the Gemara says, so what's the basis of their argument? Tanakama Savar Toase Kroiksivi. The Tanakama says there are 3 psukim. They wanted to teach us the law of Pesach Ol Moed itself, to teach us about the Ol Moed. Then Nibai Pesach Ol Moed, that to teach us the idea that in order for the Karban Shalom to be okay, the entrance to the Heichal has to be open. And wanted to tell us that the area to the sides of the Ol Moed are okay. And wanted to say that the areas to the side of the sides is disqualified. But Tzafon will it's and the north doesn't need it. Whereas Rabbi Eliezer says, wanted to teach us the Nibai Pesach Ol Moed that teaches that the doors up to the Ol Moed must be open. Wanted to tell us that the Tzafon is okay. And wanted to tell us the sides are okay. But the sides of the sides don't need a pasuk. They don't need a pasuk. So now, the Gemara says, why in one pasuk does it say the entrance, and one pasuk does it say before the Ol Moed? Kamashman could Rabbi Yehuda Mishmol. If you slaughtered the shlomim before the doors of the sanctuary were open, soon it's invalid. It says it has to be slaughtered when the doors are open and not when they are closed. Indeed, we learned if you have a shalom that you slaughtered before the doors of the sanctuary open, you're disqualified. It says Ushachato Pesach Ol Moed Bizman She Pesach Hayechol Pasuch, when the entrance is open. Marava Masniachin V'lo Bizman She no, not when it's closed. But Marava Masniachin Eretz Yisrael, they won't like this. Amar Yaakov Bar Acha Amar Ravashi Shalom Sheshachin Kolim Sheipatchu Torat Sechol Psulim. Mishkan Kolim Sheyamdu Leviim as a Mishkan, or if they in the Mishkan, if they slaughtered it before the Levites set up the Mishkan, or after the Levites brought it down, it would be disqualified. Mara says Pshita Mugaf Kinal Dami. It's clear that if the doors are closed, that it's the same as if they're locked. So vilon mai. What if there's a curtain across the entrance? So Amar Rabbi Zera, hu atzmo inase el Pesach pasuach. The curtain is basically like a Pesach pasuach, but it's only there for the sake of privacy. Rashi says. So if you're doing the avoda, you can't see into the Oel Moed while the doors are open. So it wasn't a close, it was just for privacy. Govamai, let's say there was like something high that was there, like some earth or wood blocking it. What's the halacha? Tashman Tanya Rabbi Yosef Bar Yehuda Omer Shnei Pish Pishinayu B'Beis HaChalifos. There were two small doorways in the Beis HaChalifos, the chamber of the knives. There was two small doorways. Hold on 1 second. So the two small doorways in the chamber of the knives. Vigova Shmona, there were 8 amos high. Kedela Achshir Sazarakua. Rachilas Kachi Kachim. In order to make the entire courtyard able to be Kachi Kachim, or Shlitas Kachi Kalam, and for the slaughter of Kachi Kalam. So what does that mean? Because without these doorways, we would say the parts of the courtyard next to and behind the sanctuary would not be okay for the slaughter of kachikalim or the consumption of kachikachim, because they're not even at an angle in front of the Omoed. So then they're like the sides of the sides. So to make these places able to have activity there, you had to have them opening into the Ulam. Therefore, you had to have these doorways. So we see from Mir Mailav, Dika Kamel Shmona, isn't it the case that there was an 8 Amma basically high door in front of the doorways? Mar says, "Lo, the Gavu Ninu Shmona," means that the doorways themselves were 8 amos high, and it was still that, so it wasn't a barrier. Meisvei Kol Hashem Shem Govan Esrim Amma. How could it be? Rochban Esrim Amma. Everybody had a doorway that was 20 amos high, not 8 amos. Mar says, Pishpush and Shani. These minor doorways are different. Well, you could stud them, but aren't there the sides that don't face it? How can we say that the entire courtyard was okay? Gemara says the patachu bekeren zavis. No, they made these two doorways at the corners of the Olamawait, so they face two different directions. Gemara says achori beis hakaparas mine. What about the area behind the Holy of Holies? Tashma, the Amar Rav Yehuda Marav, Wul Katana Yachor beis hakaparas. There's a small office behind the kaparas, to say that the courtyard was capable of slaughtering. I know they'll say that's what it says. Shnayim with parpar, 2 watchmen for the parbar. My parbar, Amar Rabba Bar Shila, command the Amar Klape bar, like the person says towards the outside. So therefore, it's okay to do the slaughter over there. Okay, we'll stop here for the daf for Shabbos. So obviously, we'll go into more depth on Shabbos Kodesh. Yeshikoyach.